Vivian is out and she is a beast of a unit. She has incredible abilities and a myriad of mechanics, but I'm gonna be honest, while this is really good, they can be pretty confusing and overwhelming if you're trying to master them. As such, I'll break down everything you need to know about playing Vivian, how to optimize her build, deal the max damage, and a load of other important things, so stick around until the end. First off, when you're playing Vivian, at the top left of your screen, you'll notice these stacks, and they're called flight feathers. Vivian gains these flight feathers when she basic attacks, particularly when performing this special rush attack. Flight feathers are important as when Vivian normal attacks, she will eventually float in the air. While in the air, if Vivian attacks again, the current flight feathers she has will change to guard feathers. And guard feathers are incredibly important, as this is how a big mechanic of Vivian is performed. With guard feathers, when one of her teammates uses their EX special attack, while off field, Vivian will consume one guard feather to attack the enemy and apply a decent portion of ether anomaly to the enemy. This can lead to easy off-field disorders and corruptions, which Vivian's kit significantly buffs, whereby when another ether or anomaly unit is in her team, the corruption and disorder damage dealt to enemies is increased. This alone is very nice, but not as nice as Vivian's next core mechanic. When an enemy is affected by an anomaly reaction, Vivian will again consume a guard feather to attack the enemy. But this time around, Vivian will deal massively higher damage through her blue mechanic, and she'll also cause enemies to take ether damage over time through Vivian's prophecy mechanic. Of these two, Vivian's blue mechanic is the most notable. How it works is that a bloom will both buff the first or original anomaly reaction that's being dealt, so let's say it's shock, and then on top of the shock, it will deal another instance of reaction damage, that being a bloom. The damage of a bloom depends on Vivian's anomaly proficiency, as well as what anomaly the enemy is under. What this means is that Vivian is the perfect unit to pair with your anomaly DPS. Vivian is able to deal massive bloom damage, of which is spammable thanks to her 5 guard feathers. And best of all, she can do all of this off-field. Vivian doesn't need to be on-field to trigger them or even regain her flight feathers and thereby guard feathers. She can do all of this off-field, so your anomaly DPS is not at all interrupted. They can purely focus on triggering their reactions, as every anomaly DPS wants to do. The only downside to Vivian is that to deal her high damage, she wants to have a good uptime on her flight feather regeneration, which, though her normal attacks are good for, they could be better. Thankfully, however, her EX special attacks solve this. Aside from dealing nice damage, it will regenerate 3 flight feathers. All of Vivian's other abilities also grant her flight feathers, yet they're not equal. Some abilities generate more feathers than the others, like her EX special attack, her assist follow-ups, chain attacks, and lastly, her ultimate. Speaking of, let's talk about her ultimate. Vivian will encircle an enemy and constantly damage them. Damage here is quite nice, but at the end of her ult, she will recover all 5 of her flight feathers. So definitely use her ultimate when you're completely out of flight feathers and need a quick way to get them all back. With this in mind, as you're leveling Vivian, absolutely prioritize her core passive for the highest damaging of blooms. Then upgrade her basic attacks, and finally her EX special attacks, chain attacks, and quick assists. With her kit covered, let's next talk about her W engines. Given that Vivian heavily relies on her blooms, the best type of engine for her are engines that give high anomaly proficiency. Unsurprisingly then, her signature gives just that. Her Flight of Fancy, on top of a very high base attack, has a substat of 90 proficiency. Then with its passive, the engine provides a further 120 anomaly proficiency at max stacks. The engine also goes on to increase ether buildup rate by a huge 40%, so with it you get increased blooms, more corruption anomalies, and therefore more disorders, all of which of course are very valuable. Similar to her signature, you could use the Time Weaver if you've got it. It shares the Flight of Fancy's high attack while giving some anomaly proficiency through its passive. This engine also gives a strong 25% increase to disorder damage, which you can take advantage of if you switch up your rotations and have Vivian the one triggering disorders. After this, you can use the Fusion Compiler, the Flamemaker Shaker, or the Sharpened Stinger. But remarkably, I'd actually advise against using them all and instead use the A rank Weeping Gemini. First of all, Bernice and Jane can be played alongside Vivian in a team, so naturally they'd want to use their own engines, but beyond this, remember how I said to aim for anomaly proficiency? These engines that I just mentioned lack proficiency or give very little of it. However, remarkably, the R5 Weeping Cradle amounts to anomaly proficiency that's very similar to to the Flight Feather's anomaly proficiency. The Flight Feather gives 210 proficiency, while the Weeping Gemini amounts to 192 proficiency at max stacks, which, by the way, given Vivian's playstyle, will be very easy to do. Thus, it stands as an incredible A-rank W engine that's even better, a free-to-play engine you can craft and get to R5. Therefore, if you cannot use any of the aforementioned engines, do not at all worry. You have an incredible and arguably top 3 option in the Weeping Gemini. I highly recommend that you use it, but if you cannot, you may equip the Electro Lip Gloss for a decent amount of anomaly proficiency and some attack and damage percentage. The Roaring Ride is also a good option, though its passive buffs are ultimately random. They can exist simultaneously, making it sort of a watered down version of Vivian's signature. As for any of you just starting out in the game, any of the B rank engines can be used on Vivian, but the best of them is the Magnetic Storm Bravo. Before we continue, I'd appreciate it if you could take a quick second to like the video and possibly subscribe. It helps the channel out a ton and would mean a lot to me. Back to the video. Let's now talk about a crucial aspect of Vivian, her drive discs. If you've been following the latest updates, you probably already know where I'm going with this. It's all about Phaethon's Melody. This set is tailor-made for Vivian and it is crazy. The reason why is initially it'll give you some anomaly mastery, which is very nice, but the real game-changing aspect of this set is its 4-piece bonus. It cranks up Vivian's ether damage by a very nice 25%, plus you'll gain an additional 45 anomaly proficiency every time one of your teammates unleashes their EX special attack. This set is actually insane since you get so much value from it. You get both anomaly stats, which is great, and then extra ether damage on top of this. Moreover, these buffs tie in perfectly with Vivian's kit, as her Ablooms and overtime ether damage trigger with an EX special attack. So just as these attacks are initiated, the 2 stats they're based off will be increased, leading to a very nice damage gain. In unison with Phaethon's Melody, you can use either Freedom Blues or Chaos Jazz to further increase Vivian's anomaly proficiency. This combination yielded the highest damage. However, if you're looking for a close competitor, there's the pairing of Phaethon's Melody with a 2-piece of Chaotic Metal for an additional 10% ether damage. You could also opt for attack percentage 2 pieces like Hormone Punk or Astral Voice. Though not as effective, but still good enough to use, Puffer Electro is also usable. For those of you that have just pulled Vivian and are working towards getting Phaethon's Melody, the best drive discs then are 4 Hormone Punk, or even 4 Freedom Blues, combined with 2 Phaethon's Melody if you have it, or any of the aforementioned 2 pieces. As for main stats, absolutely use anomaly proficiency on the 4th disc slot. For the 5th, you have more options. You can equip ether damage, attack percentage, as well as pen ratio. I personally recommend you use ether damage, but this can vary depending on your build or team composition. In the 6th, the best is anomaly mastery or attack percentage, but here I highly recommend anomaly mastery. While you're leveling your disc drives, aim for the substats of anomaly proficiency, attack percentage, flat attack, and pen. Alright, now let's go over Vivian's Mindscapes. Starting off with the first, it's a very good one. For one, it improves Vivian's flight feather regeneration when she consumes 4 guard feathers, so she can dish out more Ablooms, and then it also improves Vivian's prophecy mechanic, which is the ability that causes enemies to take ether damage over time. Enemies under it will take more anomaly and disorder damage, making Vivian's own and your team's damage much better. M2X similar to M1 but is much better. I'm really surprised at just how good they made her M2. Her ether anomaly buildup is increased, as is her Abloom damage, whereby the scaling of her Ablooms to anomaly proficiency is increased by 130%. And of course, Vivian will have tons of anomaly proficiency, so this is going to make a huge difference and lead to a massive damage gain. Last but not least, enemies' resistance is decreased by 15%. M4 is a pretty interesting mindscape and a huge quality of life improvement. So when Vivian basic attacks while flying and while she attacks on the ground, these attacks will crit every time and increase her attack. Then when Vivian first enters the field, she will already have a 5 guard feathers, so you don't have to worry about building flight feathers and converting them to guard feathers. You can just go right into dealing Ablooms. On to M6, this is a completely broken mindscape, even in comparison to other M6s. It does so much with just one mindscape. Up front, Vivian gets a huge 40% increase to ether damage. Her personal damage is much better here, as is her building of life feathers, since now when Vivian uses her basic attacks, special dodge, and EX special attack, she gains an additional flight feather. Then comes this wall of text, which is basically saying that when Vivian uses her basic attacks while flying, all of her guard feathers is consumed, and the damage that comes from this particular bloom is multiplied by the number of guard feathers Vivian consumed. This leads to absolutely brain dead high blooms. Vivian pretty much becomes a stupidly strong off-field main damage dealer, and considering that Vivian has all these other ways of getting flight and guard feathers through the previous Mindscapes, this ability is easily spammable. Last but definitely not least, let's dive into some exceptional team compositions that really let Vivian shine. Starting off, we've got a Jaina Assault team with Astra. Astra is amazing for all the obvious reasons, her attack and damage increases, but now Jane is also a lot better thanks to Vivian. I want to say Jane's best team was her being paired with Chingy because while stunned, Jane would produce very high assault numbers, yet now with Vivian, this entire process is sped up and much better. Jane's assaults will deal much higher damage, plus with all the repeated blooms Vivian will spam, this tool will add up to very high damage and much more than you'd get with the Chingy setup. This all occurs without spending a long time trying to stun enemies with Chingy, so the team will feel very good. You're not left in the dilemma of either choosing stunning or dealing assaults. Here you can do both assaults and blooms with very little interruption. Aside from this team, another very good team is going to be with Yanagi and Rina. Astra here is again going to be the best support instead of Rina, but Rina here is also quite great for her improvements to shock and her increase of pen ratio. For those of you that have Rina and are looking for an easy to understand guide, you can watch my guide right up here. As for Yanagi, she pairs perfectly with Vivian, and this all stems from Vivian's increase to disorder damage. Seeing as Yanagi can spam her special disorders, this ability is gonna be huge. Yanagi's disorders will be very high thanks to Vivian, and all of her disorders will be buffed, leading to a very nice damage increase. Another team I'm really looking forward to is a team with Vivian and Miyabi. Normally, Miyabi wants to be played with Yanagi to spam disorders, but given all the improvements Vivian gives to anomaly characters, she remains as a very good replacement to Yanagi. Unlike the Jane team, I'm really looking forward to just playing Miyabi. Yanagi and Miyabi are very fun, but just playing Miyabi is very fun too, which Vivian absolutely enables for. You can use any support you'd like here, though Nicole's a great option for her high defense shred and really good grouping, as is Sukaku for the massive attack she gives to her team. Well everyone, this is my guide. If you enjoyed it, please consider liking and subscribing. These things really help out the channel and would mean a lot to me. Be sure to ask me any questions you have on her, and thanks for watching.